Hey,
Hey Chris, how are you?
good. How you doing, Bob?
I'm pretty well, pretty well. Just doing some painting in the city.
Yeah. Um, you are a cityscape painter in is it New York or
Yeah, in Manhattan, yeah.
in Manhattan?
Yep.
Wow. Awesome. So you and I have agreed upon an image that you photographed the other day, is that right?
Yep.
Okay. And that image would have been flashed up before this video started. So whoever is following along can see it. And where are we painting today? What's our photo reference?
This is right next to Grand Central Station.
Okay, so it looks like
It's
a postal area.
yeah, this is the Park Avenue Viaduct behind the post office.
Okay, nice. So, yeah, do you often paint from photographs or do you just mostly paint from life here?
I mostly paint from life. I need to start painting a little more from photographs because of I've painted so many different areas in the city, and I'm kind of running out of areas to paint, so I need to start
Really?
painting from photographs more.
Hmm. Okay, so
I'm
what are
just
you
curious,
using
Chris, are
today?
you starting to paint?
Right now, yeah. What are you using?
All right.
Because are you just kind of mixing shit on your
No,
palette right now,
I'm
or?
looking at the picture right now, trying to decide how to paint. So that's
Oh,
kind of my approach.
that's what a lot of people who have been painting for a long time do. However, I've just been at this for 9 years, so I do a lot more winging it, if you know what I mean.
Well, it sounds like the same type of style. I mean, you've been putting a lot of work into this, though, I've noticed.
Yeah, well, I,
So I
I
wouldn't sell
started.
yourself short by any standard.
Well, thanks. I've been, yeah, I've been doing the whole daily painting things pretty much since I started in New Orleans back in 2011.
Right.
And yeah, I've just been trying to make it work, and now I'm just kind of doing the traveling thing. How long
Right.
have you been in Manhattan for?
About 7 years.
Okay.
I started working here, and then I moved here around the same time.
Okay. So you have a what? It's just like a canvas board or a panel there? What are you
Yeah,
painting on?
this is a Blick acrylic canvas,
Okay.
and right now I'm staring at my colors. This is kind of how I approach. I kind of just I don't know what I'm gonna paint until the very second I start. So, um,
All right.
I'm just trying to come up with the concept right now, and that's the way I like to go about
Okay. Well, I don't really trust myself that much.
it.
So I need to get things down as quick as possible. And today I am using on my palette of oil paint here, I have magenta, ochre,
Okay,
ultramarine, black, and white.
excellent,
Yeah.
excellent.
Are you still a fan of black? Because I remember years ago you said something about using black paint and how it was sort of seen academically as, um, I don't know, not being distinct enough or prized amongst colorists. You know, people always wanted to mix those
Right,
really ultra dark, like cad and Prussian darks, you know?
right. Yeah, it's actually one of my favorite colors now. That's it's. I kind of have little bit of a kind of a formula,
Oh,
and
really?
black is very prominent in it.
Hmm. Yeah, I like,
That and chrome green. Chrome green. I don't know if you've found chrome green yet, but chrome green is excellent.
I know about chrome green, but I don't really use green if I can
I know that, and I saw your recent picture. It looks excellent, actually.
I appreciate
Okay,
that.
I'm just gonna start.
I just have a little bit of color deficiency, and I knew you back in the '90s when we were at Lime Academy together, and
Right,
you were painting, and I was trying to do everything I could to avoid painting ever. I was a sculptor,
right.
and I realize now why, because when you were all talking about color, I didn't really see the color the same way. And I found out subsequently years later that I'm a little bit colorblind.
Really?
So, yeah, so I needed to dive in and figure out what I could do to kind of more structurally, scientifically um, mix my colors together
Right.
instead of doing it by eye. Um, and I think I have somewhat of a clue now. It's been probably a good 4 or 5 years since I've kind of locked in my palette.
Oh, cool.
What do you normally use for your palette?
Right now, I use almost every color. I mean, I'm using acrylic paint today, and I
Oh, okay.
use every color they have. So that's
Oh.
kind of. I
So,
still try to keep the palette a little bit limited, but I still use every color.
wow.
So
How long have you been using acrylic for? Because I thought that you were
since
an oil
since
painter.
this past, it's been about a year.
Okay.
Do you remember Sean Kelly? We started painting acrylic over the summer, and then I brought it
Oh,
to New York. So
I do remember Sean Kelly. I follow him because he is a big time butcher now, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I watched his show that he won on too. It was a
Oh, that was good, right?
reality TV show. Yeah, that was
Yep,
fantastic. It was so nice to see him again, and he's always been like a really proficient, thoughtful person,
yep.
you know. So
So
I
what are you? How's your painting going, Chris?
well, I'm doing a little one. I'm doing it's on a 6x6 cradle panel that I have an acrylic like bright orange ground on it
Okay.
because when I saw the painting today, I thought, well, it's going to be a lot of gray transitions with a little bit of really intense pops of light and reflection. So maybe the orange would help me out a little bit.
Okay.
Um, yeah, so now I usually paint on ground like this, like I like a colored kind of tone to things. And for a long time in New Orleans, when I was painting out on the street, I
Hmm.
did almost exclusively like bright pink. I'd paint
Hmm.
almost everything on bright pink, and it was kind of a thing that people would notice who weren't really into painting, and they'd say, "Oh, wow, look, the painting's coming, the pink is showing through."
Hmm.
And
Right.
it was just a real fast, easy, dirty trick to get
Right.
attention.
Right. Right. Right.
And
That makes it fun, though. I mean, that's a
yeah,
good way to. That's what I find about painting in the city. Like, like as opposed to being selling in a gallery. I like the fact that you have to come up with these little like not gimmicks, but along those lines to kind of you know sell a product. It's really fun to me. So does that make sense?
it does make sense, and I know a lot of people like that. However, for years I had to actually interact with tourists
Right.
and um, interacting with the general public and people to begin with for me is a little bit awkward. I'm not
Right.
I'm not that great at conversation, especially small
Well,
talk.
we're artists. Yeah.
Yeah. I sort of had to make myself, to a certain degree, get comfortable with it. And then by the time I did, I just realized that no one was paying any attention anyway. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'm using one brush right now. And I'm trying to vary up my gray a little.
Mm-hmm.
And I keep adding a little bit of the ochre and titanium to this pile of gray I have here. And I build
Okay.
in
So I'm
everything
about
kind
to
of at
finally
the
put
same
some
time.
paint on.
Oh, good.
I don't know if you looked over.
I have been watching, and I've been listening to you, and everyone that I've had on so far has done it in a different way. Some people are really quick at it. I know that my friend who I have the podcast with, Bonnie,
Right.
she is a little slower to start,
Right.
and she's always kind of telling me to slow down. But some people work really well at a certain pace, and
Right.
I've never been able to. Even way back when I first started in the 90s, actually thinking about becoming somewhat serious as an artist, I never had the patience for anything. So you are blocking in just some big shapes.
Yep. I
First?
am
Okay.
trying to I'm trying to match my colors a little bit more. But yeah, basically blocking in the big shapes there. So.
Okay.
And what's your stage at right now?
Well, I'm sort of getting into some of the brighter areas of light. I knocked in some of my my darks at first, and then I kind of went a little bit of a grayscale, and now I'm introducing just a little bit of color into it. So as you block in, I have just a few questions
Okay.
off the top of my head for you. Um,
Okay.
let's see. When I don't remember the last time I saw you. Maybe when our daughter Nora was just born.
Right.
So that would have been like 13 years ago.
Wow.
So
That's a while.
it is a while. So what were you up to all those years? Because I saw you a little bit on social media the past few, but yeah, before that, really the only person I ever had routine contact with was Steve.
Oh, right. Steve Larson. Right.
Yeah. Another sculptor from the academy and an old roommate of mine in college. So yeah, I just sort of I didn't really keep in contact with anybody.
Well, I did have the studio with Matt Quinn,
Oh, you
probably around
did?
that time period,
Okay.
in New London.
Yep.
And then, oh, I don't know. I mean, I honestly forget my age at this point, but I think somewhere around, was it 2020 to 2005, I moved to New York,
Okay.
and I moved to Brooklyn first and worked a great job there. And then
Doing what?
I was a waiter.
Okay.
And then I worked in a pizza shop. I was a delivery guy.
Nice. I used to do dominoes in
Oh, you
Westchester.
did? Yeah, that's
Yeah.
probably one of the last times I saw you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, wow. So, um, you're married, right?
I am married to my lovely wife, Jasmine.
And
She is phenomenal.
what does
Very
Jasmine do?
lucky to have her.
Great. What does she do in the city?
She's a designer,
Oh,
clothes
nice.
designer.
Does she design any of your clothes or?
Well, I mean, she picks out my clothes, so my fashion style has gone way up, but
Excellent.
which is good.
Yeah.
And so, where are you? I saw you're in Montana.
Yes. We used to do like half the year when I had the business in New Orleans, half the year there and then half the year kind of traveling or some of the time in Florida. But
Oh, really?
yeah, now we're just pretty much traveling in the West
Uh-huh.
I mean, we came out here in January and I had a whole bunch of plein air things planned for the entire spring. All of them were canceled. So we were stuck in Sedona, Arizona for the better part of 2 months. And we have been in the general area of Yellowstone ever since.
I mean, that
And
just sounds so interesting to me.
I
That's
just paint. Yeah,
yeah.
it's cool. There's a lot of freedom to it. There's a lot of weirdness to it too.
Uh-huh, which is good.
Yeah.
Um, go explain
I'm
that.
never bored. I'm
Okay.
never
Okay, that's
bored.
good.
Um, have you done traveling like out west? Have you ever painted out
Oh
here
no.
before? No.
No, I have not. Um,
Uh, just a city boy.
yep. Yeah. But Manhattan, there's a lot to it. So I get to see Manhattan, and I did see Brooklyn, so
Yeah.
and we go out to the Rockaways sometimes, and it has a lot of variety, so it's nice.
Hmm. So, um, was it tough around wherever you live in Manhattan when the lockdown first started? I mean,
I liked it. Me and my wife we just stock up on food and kind of like
mhm.
hunker down, and it was I really enjoyed it actually, because of I don't know, I just thought it was kind of fun. I mean, that and also extremely stressful at the same time, like just
Yeah.
watching the news was just terrifying. So, you know, don't let me fool you on that sense. Um, but New York is a little bit better than it was. So,
Hmm.
and we have a little bit better understanding of how to prevent uh, getting COVID. So
Hmm.
that's definitely helps. And I'm
Yeah.
back painting outside, so
Oh, you are good.
yeah.
Yeah. Because Matt Quinn, another
Yeah,
guy who we went to the Lamb Academy with, who is an artist, I believe he lives in Brooklyn.
right.
He showed me some pretty crazy images of some of the protests.
Uh-huh.
And in the back of my mind, I thought, oh, I wonder if Bob's up there painting those protests.
No, I tried to we did go to the protest, but I try to just paint a little bit more of everyday stuff. That's kind of
Hmm.
my thing. I think it's kind of underappreciated, and in our world, it's not to say, the protests aren't great, because they are great, but they like to be very provocative, and I like
Hmm.
to do the opposite. That's just my personality. But so you know, I, you know,
Yeah.
as I said, we did participate though.
Okay. Nice. Yeah. We have been up like in the middle of nowhere for all of that.
Right.
So yeah, it's just what we've seen on the news, really.
Right.
So I see that you're using like a chartreuse
Right.
kind of
Excellent word,
color.
Chris.
I'm sorry.
Excellent word.
Oh yeah. Well, I assume that green is either emerald green or chartreuse. I think those are the only greens I really know.
Okay, this is oh, what is it? Some kind of yellow and chrome green.
Okay, so chrome, and is it like a warm yellow? Are you using like cad or using like a
No, this is a cool yellow. This
okay,
is Hasana.
okay. Hmm. So even though I am not quite where I want to be in order to use the palette knife, I'm so used to using it at a certain stage that while I'm mixing, I'm thinking about where I can put things on with a palette knife, and I'm nowhere fucking near ready to use a palette knife yet.
Really?
Man, oh, I get into these like I don't know. I can't call them meditative states, even though I'm always looking for that kind of no think meditative state while I work.
Right.
Um, it's almost like automatic procedure at some points, and I thought that would come a lot later for some reason. I always thought, maybe after 30, 40 years of painting that you could do it with your eyes closed, but it started to happen relatively quick for me, where it became like driving in a way. You
Uh-huh.
know, well,
Yeah.
you wouldn't know much about driving.
No. Not compared to you.
Oh man, yep. Cityscapes are really interesting to me. I've done a lot from my time in Los Angeles,
Mhm.
and they mostly contain um, artificial light or like a dusk sort of really intense glow. And I like to backlight some of the buildings and cars and palm trees and stuff. And it has been a while since I've actually tackled something like um, all this gray tone. But this is what you see and this is what you work with all the time. And you pull out a lot of color out of everything. I mean,
Right.
your pieces are, um, they have great color worlds, and they have
Thank you.
really careful balances of value and intensity too. And it's neat that you can do that with just staring at a bunch of gray stuff all the time.
Well, I mean, as far as what you were referring to earlier about painting in a non-city environment and stuff, I do like to tone out the noise in the city.
Okay.
Because it is very noisy. There's
Mm-hmm.
a lot of construction, and they have these things. I don't know if you've driven in the city
It
and noticed the iron grates.
it's been years, and
Yeah.
the last time I was through was with our coach when we first got it, maybe like 2009, 2010.
Uh,
And I don't think I was actually in the city. I was like around on the bridges going to New England.
right.
So what about these grates?
Yeah. So they're very noisy, and they're not. You never know when someone's gonna drive over one,
Okay.
and it kind of wrecks your it wrecks your concentration. So what I like to do is I like to listen to music.
Okay.
So I listen to a lot of music when I paint, and it kind of keeps me focused, and I get to tone out the city noise. So.
And do people stop and talk to you or want to interact with you while you're working? Yeah.
Sometimes I pass out my business cards, which I kind of like to do, and sometimes they follow me on Instagram, and
Okay.
so that's kind of cool.
Yeah, I kind of got addicted to painting in front of people.
Right.
But by being in New Orleans for those years, and now that I'm alone all the time, and I mean, there's no one. There hasn't been anyone around me definitely since March, but even before then, I was either alone, like in the middle of nowhere painting, or if I kind of got anxious, I would go to a coffee shop and just have people around me while I worked. I kind of got into this thing where I felt like their eyes were actually helping, like the constant presence of the possibility of approval or disapproval kind of
it
got me going.
You get focused.
Yeah, and I'm also a coffee addict, and it helps to get up, because I get up really early in the morning now to work, and it helped to sort of get up and do some morning routine, and then get out and driving and on the road into like a Starbucks or something by 6 a.m. And then I'd work for 2 or 3 hours on a bunch of different paintings, and then my day would be relatively free after that.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah,
that's what I was gonna say. So I like to tone out the noise in the city by music, but then when I'm in a quiet environment, I like to find the noise. It kind of keeps me focused also. So if I'm near the beach, I like to be near the waves.
Mm-hmm.
So
I totally understand that.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yes. So, is this funny for you so far? Some people enjoy this, and for others, it's difficult. I know for me, it's a little weird having to speak while I'm
you're
working.
Doing a great job. I'm not really, following you're saying you're the leader of the conversation. I just have to respond, so it's not really that difficult,
Yeah.
So,
because I want to make this more of a thing. I think it would be kind of neat, because there are a limited number of things that painters and, well, especially plein air painters can do to sort of be around other people who are working.
Right.
And I kind of like the agreed upon subject matter, and you can kind of see both painters, like the way they approach a painting. And I mean, even though it's not going to go the entire length, I mean, I basically just start it and then finish it, and then show the images when we finish, like when everything's complete.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's helpful. I think it's a lot more helpful maybe than watching other videos or like a time lapse. It's just a notion, Bob. I may be completely out of my fucking mind, and people may be like, no, Chris, this is one of the stupidest ideas you've ever had.
No, I think it's all about distracting part part of your mind so you can focus on painting. Like as I said, you're kind of leading the conversation. So when I paint outside, if someone's talking to me, I just keep painting, And I think if you work with other artists, you get to just kind of have a running conversation, and you can just kind of paint, and it's just like any other work, So.
So I think I have everything kind of placed where I want it, but it's nowhere near. Like, I'm going to have to go back and completely adjust my values, my darkest darks and my lightest lights. I think I got kind of a little carried away with the gray there. I see now what you're doing, and I think I have a better idea of why you're choosing to not lock in a darkest dark for this particular image, and why you've gone with kind of a brighter hue to go underneath everything, because mine's beginning to. I thought that orange would actually keep it somewhat vibrant and together, but it's beginning to just kind of all look the same. I think I put too much
I was a
paint
little
on
worried
it.
about this picture to begin with, that it was so gray and so dark.
It's a tough
that
image,
might
yeah.
happen.
No, but it's a good challenge, though.
Yeah.
Okay, so while you're still working, let's see. What else did I want to ask you, Bob? Oh, yeah. What are you searching for in your cityscapes when you paint them? Because sometimes I see the buildings, and the buildings look very vibrant, but they're dark. And sometimes you have the vehicles and the people walking about, and sometimes it's much more just about the vertical and horizontal of things like lampposts and lights and subway looking entrance pieces. I mean, do you have like themes to your
Well, mostly I
cityscapes?
work with just color. I
Okay.
know I need to focus more on my drawing, but I a friend of mine once told me that people tend to just go with their strengths, and it's sort of true. So if I'm painting outside and I just need to get work done, I just kind of need to focus, and the first thing I focus on is color. So it just happens. That's the way that's my fallback. So
Okay.
so I've gotten better at it. But as far as like the figures and the picture and stuff like that, there's only so many areas in the city you can paint, and the number one area you can paint is the curb, 6 feet away from the building. So
All right.
you pretty much always end up with the same view of, the same angle, the same people walking down the same sidewalk and that kind of thing. Unless you're to, stand in the middle of the street and just go back to your canvas that way, which, I need to perfect. But other than that, I'm more of a colorist.
Okay. Yeah, I've heard some people talk about me as a colorist too.
Right.
I don't personally feel like one.
Uh-huh.
I just kind of feel like a person who fell into painting and who's trying to make a relief sculpture out of everything.
Right. Well, that's good too.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's a better approach than being, kind of like arrogant toward your painting, because, I have the same approach to my painting as, hell, what do I know kind of thing. And it's a lot easier to paint that way. Do you know what I mean? Or does that make no sense?
It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Yep.
I would much rather like look at a painting that's kind of someone's best attempt at, trying, just trying to do a painting not knowing anything,
Mm-hmm.
than someone that's like confident and, it's much more interesting. So
I kind of feel that way sometimes too. I'm unable to watch YouTube videos where anyone has labeled themselves a master.
Right.
And it's not because I'm in the same field or that there's any kind of weird professional thing going on. It's just I always question the type of person who can sit with that nomer on
Right.
themselves. I mean, at the most days, I just play with shit.
Yeah.
Throw things at the wall, hope that they stick.
Yeah.
What are you doing now?
I am mixing up a gray.
Okay.
I like to vary the grays. Sometimes I mix up, 3 primaries to make a gray. Sometimes I just use black and white. So that's what I'm doing. So right now I'm mixing up 3 colors and black and white. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I got into the violet grays
Uh-huh.
a while back because I almost completely switched over to like a CMYK printer's palette
Yeah.
instead of the RGB one.
Yeah.
It feels a lot. It feels a lot easier for me to just rely on one hue of red, and if I need to,
So
I
what
can.
you're talking about, you use both palettes? Like a magenta and a red, or?
Now, I mostly use like a cyan, a magenta, like a base
Yeah.
yellow, and white and
Yeah.
black now.
Right.
And if I need to, I'll throw in another warm color, but it won't be another red. It'll be like a cad yellow deep. Or it will
Oh, I see. That's
sometimes,
cool.
or it will be like an ochre or a sienna.
Right.
So I can warm things up there,
Right.
and I don't need to necessarily deal with the cad red. The brighter the red is, the less I really visually understand what goes next to it.
Well, it's kind of interesting. From what I found, the photoreceptors in your eye.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you have like whatever, the purple one, the short, the medium, and the long range. And the long
Yes.
range is for the red receptor,
Mm-hmm.
right? So this is the way I think. So that one is actually closer in the yellow spectrum than it is to the red. So as you get closer to red, you actually
Mm-hmm.
have less reception than you do yellow. So if you use the yellow as the red, that kind of makes some sense. So
Okay. I read a little bit about it a while back when I took some online quizzes
right.
because Becky had prompted me to do it. She was
Right.
wondering, I think, what I would get. And yeah, she was somewhat surprised to see that despite my best attempts, she would, I think, see 95% 96% of
Yeah.
all the different tests she would pass, and I got through probably 60.
Yeah. Yeah, Jasmine has better color sense than I do. I ask her questions a lot. So,
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Well, from what I've read, it is almost exclusively it's an XY kind of thing.
Yeah.
So you still mixing that gray, Bob?
I don't know what I'm doing right now. I'm trying to figure this out. I'm putting the shadow for the bus or those trucks. So
Okay.
that's what I'm working on. How's your painting going? Further along?
Well, I'm doing a much smaller piece, and I'm trying to keep my my color shapes fairly large, despite the scale I'm working at, and I want to keep scraping down so I can see some of the underpainting showing through. And I've totally lost some areas. I mean, to be perfectly honest, if it's things that have to do with structure, I get a little bogged down with the value and not so much with the drawing. And I kind of kicked myself about halfway through because I realized that I should have paid attention to one more than the other.
Right. Well, that's very important. That's my biggest issue right now is, my value structures is not that interesting, So good for you that you're able to focus on value.
Well, I think it's also good too that you can recognize what you need to work on, because other people can only tell you so much.
Right.
There has to be a healthy amount of self-scrutiny.
Right.
And I think this may be too dark when I'm that's a little dark, Chris. Uh-oh. Well, I'll try to bring that back somehow. Yeah. So, do you normally spend a lot of time mixing your colors when you're out?
Oh yeah.
Painting on the street.
That's mostly what I do. I think it's also because I'm kind of non-confrontational, so it's kind of tough to like stare at somebody and paint them. So that's a lot of it,
Aren't people normally moving?
Yeah, and it's also, as soon as I start painting someone, they're gone. So
yeah. Oh.
I started painting the people. They set up these tables outside now because of the COVID, and so that's my new theme. So it's a little tough to paint people while they're sitting at a table, but I just set up about a block away. So that's my deal.
Are they getting tested? Are they doing some sort of charity work for COVID, or are they just...
What do you mean?
These tables.
Oh, no. They're just restaurants.
Oh. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen a few things like that in the nearest big city to us is Bozeman, and we're going to be going Bozeman, Montana. Yeah.
Okay.
I think we're going to be going back there this afternoon, and they had a lot of like patio and street dining opened up.
Yeah, it's neat.
Yeah. Oh. So In your years of painting in the city, do you have any kind of crazy, outrageous stories?
I really don't. I tried to come up with something yesterday, but it's pretty tame.
Really?
Let me think. No, I mean, I don't know. I don't know how to answer that. Do you? Painting in Starbucks? Is there any you've covered a lot of Starbucks there. That's
Yeah,
gotta be kind of interesting.
I went to a few. I estimate that probably I've painted in close to 80 different Starbucks around the country.
Right.
And I'll tell you, my favorite is definitely the one on Pacific Coast Highway in Malibu. Not because of the actors and musicians who walk in there to get their morning coffee, but because of the other people, the other personalities who are there. And it just goes far and above anything that I've been able to witness, like in Florida or Texas,
right,
or any other place that has some unique people. That one Starbucks that I have painted at many times before over the years, there's always been someone who is either shouting on the phone or who is wearing their bathrobe at like, I don't know, 11 a.m. and into a public restaurant, or they're arguing with someone outside. I saw one time someone came in with a couple of small dogs, and they laid out a mat on one of the tables, and they just kind of put their dogs on the table, and the dogs, these little tiny, they look like little teddy bears. They were just kind of crawling around on this mat on the table, and then people were taking photos of them. It is an absolute circus there.
Where's this, Malibu? Malibu,
yeah.
California?
Yeah. It feels like it would be a tame one because it's right by a Ralph's, and it's in kind of a nice like mini mall type of area. Yeah, but some of the weirdest stuff I've seen there, most definitely. And I've spoken to Bonnie on some of the other podcasts about working in different locations and having some people come up to me and touch me or talk to me while I'm working.
That's got to be disturbing.
It's disturbing and creepy, and that mostly happens in more maybe retirement community areas such as Palm Springs or like the villages in Florida, just north of Miami. Kind of those places tend to have more of the hands-on people. Yeah, the most hands-on anyone's ever gotten with me was probably I don't think it was in Las Vegas. It was around the holidays. I think I was in Henderson, Nevada, and I was there one morning, and a woman came over and she starts showing me photos on her phone of her painting, and I'm polite and I ask her a few questions, and she asks me what I'm doing, and I answer, and I nod, and I put my headphones back on, and to me it was a nice, like, kind of light early morning chat. And she comes back, and she's suddenly sitting at my table, and she's showing me more photos and more photos, and I can't get away. And I look up, and I notice that the baristas apparently know this individual and maybe have seen her speak and interact with other people before, because they're laughing their asses off watching me deal with her.
Yeah.
And it was like close to 45 minutes of being as polite as I possibly could. And she essentially wanted me to explain to her how to go about painting a portrait and then becoming a portrait artist. You know,
Right.
People. And the one thing I will say, though, is that most places around the country, you're not dealing with folks who are inebriated and who might fall on you. And that was one unique aspect of learning to paint on the street in New Orleans.
Oh, yeah.
The partying and the fact that people could go out with open containers out on the street and work and play music, yell, get into arguments, and it all happens around you while you have to produce work and sell it.
Yeah, I mean that does sound kind of fun in a way, though. Like, in a way that, like, I don't know if you have a tough time staying motivated if it's too quiet, or if the kind of selling online keeps you motivated. Is that the case?
I'm not sure if it's a sound dynamic. I think it's just more a presence of other people that helps me to maintain the motivation that I woke up with.
Right.
Maybe.
How are we doing on time, Chris, by the way?
Well, we're at about 51 minutes right now.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
well,
so, I mean, this is what this PaintCast thing is so far. It's just like you and I chatting with one another, and people see us paint or not paint and talk about doing so. And I haven't really come up with anything better. I think I want to keep it sort of loose and conversational. And
right.
If another painter comes on and they end up just putting one mark on and they'd rather just hang out and talk, I'm cool with that too. Like, there's no pressure, and I don't really see a lot of other people doing this, so I'm not really sure.
Yeah, I think it's a cool idea.
Where to go with it.
Yeah. What made you start the YouTube versus the podcast?
Well, I know that I can only do so much with an audio podcast, and that my friend Bonnie, who I kind of started this whole thing with, she only has patience for so much.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how much longer she'll have patience just talking or working with me. So it's probably be healthy, I thought, for me to be able to get into something that is adjacent to podcasting.
Mm-hmm.
And I've tried doing something similar on YouTube with just myself before, and I failed miserably. Um, so it was sort of a second chance at it. And
Well,
yeah,
I watched probably about 5 of them. I think they're pretty cool. So, and relaxing, which is nice.
well, I will be posting a lot more this summer with a lot of different people. Some plein air painters, some just people who paint like daily in their studio. I have a muralist person lined up, so I don't know. Oh, what else did I want to ask you? Oh yeah, I see that you mostly paint larger pieces. Do you
Okay.
do small? Do you do smaller work at all?
Not really. I have a tough time with brushwork. I'm kind of I don't know. As I said, my drawing is not the best, and
Well,
so no, not really. Not at the moment.
I don't think people would be able to tell from your finished pieces, though. They have
Oh, thanks.
they have a lot of dynamic quality to them, and they're very convincing as what they are. And I also like that they don't try to be too romantic about the situation.
Uh,
You know, I think there's a lot of um, kind of pressure for some people just to paint those romantic, rainy streets with the reflections.
yeah.
And that's just not how I see most places I go that are cities. I mostly see kind of alleyways and funny areas where streetlights make some pretty interesting shapes. Um, and I see a lot of dumpsters. And I just don't see a lot of those sprawling, rainy streets with the stoplights.
Yeah, I had a person before on Instagram defriend me because I had listed my where people looked at my website from,
Yep.
and he kind of yelled at me, said I was being like, pretentious or whatever. And then I looked at his photographs, and they were just kind of like these really clinically beautiful pictures, and it was just like, are you having any fun at this at all? Like, it just, we didn't get into artwork just to sell, like, like any other product, so
Yeah. It is not a ShamWow.
not a what?
It's not a ShamWow. Do you remember those
Oh yeah.
infomercials for ShamWow?
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes you're made to feel like it is, but
Yeah.
it shouldn't be.
Yeah.
No,
Well, I do have to say, I did mention before, but I don't know if I'll get the chance, but I know you have an aversion to green, but I liked your newest green picture. It's like a field. I think it might have been Montana. That was pretty
yeah.
awesome.
Thank you. I tried to use as little green as I could. It was
Yeah,
mostly
I noticed
gray.
that. Yeah.
I think I do okay with really small areas of it.
Yeah.
I can stomach it and I won't wipe it out. Um, yeah, I appreciate that. And I mean, I'm not crazy about the color green, but somehow the way that you use it, along with brown,
Uh,
in some of your work last year, I thought was great. I think
oh, thanks.
I remember talking to Krista about it actually, and we were both saying how you're getting really good at not painting certain colors, but
Oh,
having them
really?
be
That's weird.
present.
What does that mean?
Well, you don't necessarily, in some pieces, paint warm reds.
Uh-huh.
Some of them, they're just violet, but you've put so many different pieces and patches of green and gray around it that you've just sort of manipulated a rather kind of a rather violet red into something that's a lot more intense. And I don't know. She could probably articulate it a lot better.
Well, Krista's getting pretty good too. I've seen her stuff, and I saw she went to Art Basel, I think, with maybe it was Kyle.
Yeah. Yes. She is quite the
She's doing a lot of painting.
plein air socialite. She's gonna hate that I said that. No, I just enjoyed watching her video. She did something for I think it's called Olmsted. It's like a Olmsted plein air, I want to say. And she did a studio visit tour on their either their Facebook or their Instagram. And yeah, she showed.
I think I might have saw that. I think I did. She was plein air, and she was doing. It was like a month ago, 2 months ago, maybe.
Yeah. Oh no, actually, I think just a few weeks.
Oh, okay.
Man, I have no idea what date it is anymore. So,
we got quite a rainstorm going on right now, Chris. How's the weather there?
You have a rainstorm where you are?
Yeah.
The weather surprisingly is.
Surprisingly, what?
It's
Can you hear
relatively
that,
clear. Oh my gosh, yeah. It is clear. There are some clouds, but it's mostly blue skies and a river and some horses on a farm across the river.
Wow.
And it's pretty chill here. Yeah. Yesterday or the day before, I was recording something and I was in the middle of what I thought could possibly be like a wild tornado that just came up out of nowhere. The wind must have gone up to somewhere around like gusts of 70 miles an hour.
Mm-hmm.
And I was kind of freaking out. It was really intense. But
70 miles an hour, literally? I mean, that's some serious wind. That's crazy.
Oh yeah. Like all of our stuff outside was just blowing into the bushes and almost into the river. It was incredibly intense. And I saw people outside trying to load their boats because there's like a boat dock, and they were all over the place.
How's your painting going there?
Are you able to see?
Well, let me take a look. Ooh, that's beautiful.
You're very kind, sir. It's a tiny painting, and I tried to use the brush as seldom as I could.
Okay.
And the idea was to keep with the palette knife and to do some scraping. And I know I could have come up with a slightly more convincing image if I had maybe gone a little bit slower and just used smaller brushes, more careful strokes. But I'm really trying to get away from that. I'm trying to get away from the notion in my head that what I naturally do should be suppressed.
I don't understand what you're saying.
Well, naturally, I'm a fast kind of messy painter who constructs things just kind of on the fly,
Right.
who has like extreme ADHD when it comes to like using anything for too long or focusing on any one area for too long. And watching other people work and listening to other people, they are a lot more calm and methodical than I ever have been, despite me attempting so. And for a while I thought that maybe it was a detriment to what I was doing, to not have the patience and to not really explore using kind of appropriate tools for the size. But I mean, that's not what my gut tells me to do, you know?
Yeah.
So I've been trying to be a little bit truer to my natural inclinations,
That's cool.
which are usually a little messy. But if you take a look on Instagram, you can sort of zoom in to the images
Okay.
that people post. So, like the piece I did that started out as a plein air that I finished inside here.
Right.
It all kind of fits together when you look at it or when you squint. But if you actually zoom in and look at the mark making, it's like a crazy person did it. It is absolutely like all over the place, and that's kind of what I'm going for.
Well,
How
that's
do you
good.
feel? How do you feel about your mark making in general? Because sometimes
I think it's terrible. I
well,
think it's really bad. You know, Steve Sheehan, and
I remember Steve Sheehan, yeah.
right, and me and Sean were talking about it, and we were talking about what a good mark maker he
Yeah.
is, and I don't know if that's because he was national rifle champion, and that's kind of like what he was going for, was good marksmanship, like a play on words. But he's awesome and amazing, and his drawings too. And I have one of his pictures, and obviously by comparison, I'm god awful. So,
Well,
but
you know
I
what
can.
they say, Bob. Compare and despair.
What is that? Compare and despair?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's
I
room for improvement. So.
always. I think that that you definitely have an interesting innate way of thinking about adding paint, and that you always have ever since you. And how old were you when I met you? You were like 18 or 19?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So even when you were a kid, you were doing some interesting stuff. And
Well, I remember your senior project for sculpture was just insane. I mean, that was an incredible amount of work. Do you still sculpt? And you were a great sculptor.
no, I
Okay.
just sort of
Do
abandoned
you
it.
add any of your sculpture knowledge to your painting?
I think always.
Okay.
I'm always looking to throw some of that in there, and I don't think it's the kind of thing where I'll never do it again.
Right.
I'm just not doing it right now, so it's kind of not even on my radar.
Yeah.
In my wheelhouse, not on my radar. I will
So am
tell
I
you
slowing up the video now because I'm kind of slow at painting? Are you done or?
um, not necessarily. I have one tiny anecdote to tell you about
Okay.
what we were just talking about. The last piece I sculpted was in 2010. So I haven't done anything since then. I've played around with my kids with like Play-Doh
Right.
and clay, and I've made the little ones some armatures.
Right.
So, but I've never, like, in the last decade, I have not sculpted anything. I just refuse to.
Okay.
Uh, for some reason or another, it changes daily. But the last piece I did was I did a kind of a large medallion of a Justin Bieber portrait,
No way.
and
For who?
it was supposed to be a coin. I
Uh-huh.
had this idea of doing these pop portraits
Uh-huh.
as collectible or wearable coins,
Yeah.
and I was going to make little casts of them. And yeah, I remember getting done, and I looked at it and
And
I said, "That's a good portrait," and I'm completely done with sculpture. And I took a photo of it, and then I destroyed it, and I threw everything away. And I still have a few wax tools. I have a little bit of wax, but I have gotten rid of all of my sculpture stuff. I don't have any of my pieces. I gave all of them away, or I destroyed them,
uh-huh.
or people bought them. And
So
yeah,
Justin Bieber ended your sculpture career. That's funny.
yes. Well, the last commercial piece I worked on was a portrait of Barack Obama.
Okay.
And that was for another sculptor in um, Denver. I was working as a fixer,
Uh-huh.
and I did all these pieces for his monument. I did a lot of scale work, and he was kind of an older guy, and I saw him making improvements in the wax to the clay pieces I had delivered him after they were cast in wax, getting ready for the bronze process. And I was just a little shocked at how he was improving my work, and it completely changed it. And I realized then that I wanted to have complete autonomy over what I was producing
Uh-huh.
as far as sculpture goes. And that's when I started doing things like this, painting, or thinking about painting, or wanting to paint, or not sculpting anymore.
Mhm.
So, but that was that. So, uh, this was kind of an interesting convo, Bob. I
Yeah.
appreciate you coming on with me, and I'll probably release this as a podcast and a YouTube video for people who want to watch as we do this.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't ask you some of the normal questions I ask during a podcast, but it was
That's
good to
okay.
hear your voice, and I think it was a good conversation.
Oh, no question.
Okay, man.
All
Hey,
right. I'll talk to you later.
hold
Yeah.
on. Anyone who's listening, if they want to check you out and go to you on social media or go to a website, how do they find you? And of course, I'll leave links to those below. But can you just describe where
So
people can
my
find you?
website is bobjonespainting.com, and my Instagram is bobbybones78.
All right, great. Hey, I will talk to you later, man.
All right. Thanks a lot.
All right.